Folks, welcome back to So Bad It's Good, presented by Betches Media. Today, this is a good day here at So Bad It's Good. We talk on this show about the concept of triple threats. Well, today's guest I would classify as an octagonal threat. Not only is she a podcaster, a host, an actor, most recently on the new Dennis Leary sitcom Going Dutch, she's an improviser, an author, and now the host of the excellent freeform show Scam Goddess, based on her hit podcast, Scam Goddess. We have legend, the Scam Goddess herself, LACI MOSLEY. LACI, thank you so much for being here.
Oh my gosh, what an introduction, Ryan. Thank you so much. You want to do my funeral? That was so good.
I don't want to do it anytime soon. I need you. I need you in my life, so I don't want to do that anytime soon. Listen, I started this podcast a while, and you were on my dream guest list, so this is a huge day for me because I am a fan of the podcast. I read your book last year, and not only is the book great because it talks about scams, but it also talks.
Hey, Ryan, I lost audio on you.
So I read your book, and it's great because obviously it talks about scams, but it also talks about your life. And as a failed actor myself, I was just so appreciating even the scene of you parking the car to go to your Herald audition at UCB. I was like, oh my God, I've been at that moment. But to see your success is so amazing. And obviously, we want to focus on this amazing show, Scam Goddess. You can stream it on Hulu. It's on Freeform on Wednesdays. There's 2 episodes released so far. And I have to say, it took me out the moment I saw you on a horse in front of the Ronald Reagan statue.
Very popular actor. They love that man too much in that town. They have a Reagan run. They have Reagan streets, several Reagan streets. Reagan's photo is everywhere. It's really wild. But I mean, that's their guy. I'm not going to judge them. I'm not going to yuck your yum.
Well, yeah, this is, so the first episode, you guys, focuses around Rita Crundwell, who stole $53 million from her town of Dixon, which is Ronald Reagan's hometown. And I just found it so funny that at the end, they're like, I'm glad we got Rita so we can go back to loving Reagan. Like, we can go back to appreciating Reagan. Like, I love that. It was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they have like a parasocial relationship with this dead man. I'm not even kidding. Like, some of them I talked to, that we didn't air this on the show, but they were upset that Reagan didn't put his library in Dixon. Like, it was a personal affront that they didn't put his library there. So I was like, you know what? They deserve it. They deserve Reagan's library. So I'm sad for them.
Yeah, I mean, this podcast has been going on for 5 years. Was there any trepidation about bringing it to television and picking the right stories? I mean, because this thing looks like $1 million. You know, these are serious stories, but also with scammers, I think you always point out there's a ridiculousness factor that you kind of bring light on, and there is a humorous bent to it. So you're like the perfect, reliable narrator to take us through. But did you have any trepidation doing this?
Oh, absolutely. And some of those fears have come true. Luckily, most people seem to understand the mission of the show. I make fun of scammers. You might see me dressed like them. You know, like I'm always like weirdly trying to blend into the vibe, but somehow standing out in an odd way, which was very difficult to do in our next episode. Well, no, in Brooklyn, because everyone in Brooklyn looks different. But my fear is that people were going to think that I was making fun of the victims of scams. And that's never been the case on my podcast. It's never been the case in my book or on the show. And they're all different babies. They have the same name, but they're very different, mediums. And they're talking about different things. But my biggest fear is that, one, on my podcast, I can curse, we're wilding out, we're doing tangents. And I knew that translating it, especially through the filter of ABC News, we have to
Nope.
Okay.
Sorry. Do you have me? Okay, you froze for a sec.
Yeah, I have you. God, what's going on?
Okay.
Okay, we both froze. Okay, here.
Okay, got you.
Yeah, what's going on?
You're saying through the lens of ABC News.
So through the lens of ABC News, we have to worry about being sued. Things have to be adjudicated. Cases have to be closed. Everything has to go through legal. There were so many times I had to get back in the booth and re-record VO because legal was like, you can't say that. So it's not as loosey-goosey as my podcast. And so I was hoping that people still felt the humor and the lightness of my podcast, but realized that in this medium, it's a little bit more serious. And sitting down with victims, like, it was never a joke. And a lot of times the people who were willing to and brave enough to sit down with me, they would tell producers, they were like, I'm scared she's going to make fun of me, or like, I listened to the podcast and I don't know what to expect. And I was like, it's never going to be that. Like, and a lot of times it was devastating.
I think the people and the people that know you know how deeply you care. It's just like you have a humorous lens, which I think brings people in. But just to your credit, though, in that first episode about Rita, you get to talk to the whistleblower of her stealing $53 million, and it's a very emotional interview. I mean, she talks about the stress that she was under in finding out that Rita had stole $53 million from the town of Dixon, and you almost tear up because you saw this lady looking like living through this torment. She when she gets arrested, she was like, I wonder if Rita's going to be cold that night, if she's going to have a blanket, and your heart went out to her.
Yes, Kathy was very brave. That interview was actually 2 hours long. There's stuff, obviously, that we could not share. And there's other things that we really wanted to protect the people who were brave enough to share information with the world. And so there were some moments where we did cry, but you're not going to see those because that's not what we wanted to show Kathy as. Kathy was a very brave, strong woman who stood up to the face of basically tyranny of the damn town because Rita would not stop stealing. When the FBI was setting her up, they would put money in the account. Rita would take it out immediately. I'm like, you got $54 million, Rita. Do you really need to take every dime from the town? She was so greedy.
She wasn't being subtle either. She was like buying horses, horrible horse jewelry. She buying she bought a $2 million RV, folks, which we get to see. And I'm like, how do you spend $2 million on an RV? And she was so brazen over 20 years, but she also, she was very savvy in the sense that she was creating the documents. It all went through her. Whereas in the second episode involving the sports
Peggy.
Peggy, yeah, she was involved in Dennis Rodman's finances, Ricky Williams. Hers seemed very sloppy, whereas the first episode, I thought she was like creating the reports and she was more in control. And it just shows it takes a lot of scammers to make the world go round.
Yes. And what Rita did too was like she had scam propaganda. Like she would leave these notes in people's binders that she was doing on clip art that were like, we broke. No ask for no money. We broke. And it would be like a little clip art of a broke man. And I'm like, what are you, ma'am? What are you doing? But what really hurt me the most was that when they were starting to fire people because they were losing the actual money in City Hall to pay for, the resources to have people working there, she wouldn't rehire anyone else. Kathy was doing like 55 people's jobs. I always say it is a scam if you work at a job and they're like, you're so good at your job. We want you to take on more responsibility. Am I taking on more coins? If I'm not taking on more coins, I'm not taking on more responsibility. No.
Yeah. I mean, she was like she was like letting people go, like they were retiring, and she wasn't hiring new people in the town. And so other people had to pick up the slack, and it was wild. And she just kept doing this. And then, you guys, what's so fascinating, and I don't know if I'm allowed to like spoil the story and stuff, but like when they actually get arrested, like they're still scamming in a sense because they use the pandemic to get out of prison early, like a scam on top of a scam.
Yes, and then was recently pardoned by Joe Biden.
Are you kidding me?
It happened after we filmed it. We added it to the end of the episode. She was pardoned. Now, I will say she was already on house arrest with her brother. So at that point, we're just using, money and resources to keep somebody in the house. She's already a pariah. She moved back to Dixon, which I thought was the most brazen thing. If I rob you, I'm not going to be your neighbor. I'm not going to rob your house and then move next door. Like, that's wild to me. She's bold.
And there's a clip of her brother who she's staying with, according to the court documents. And the brother's like, you could get the F out of my face. That's what you could do. And I'm like, guys, is there, like, I love scammers because they never accept any sort of actual responsibility. It's still through this cloud of lies and anger at the people they scammed.
And I'll tell you something that I haven't told anybody before, but ABC, like, they wanted me to go to the brother's house where Rita was staying and knock on the door. And I was like, y'all, I am black. I am not going to that angry man's house and y'all trying to get me shot.
On a special episode of Scam Goddess, LACI faces death. Yeah, like, oh my God.
I love all my producers. They had the best intentions, but we were really investigating. So they were like, would you do it? And I was like, hell no.
Yeah, it's like, I love being on television, but I don't know if I love it. Let's go to the Dennis Leary sitcom.
Right.
Yeah. So I'd heard about Rita before, but the second episode, which reminder once again, Wednesdays on Freeform, and if you don't have Hulu, no excuse for you not to watch because you can go to freeform.com and you can watch the episodes in the app. But the second one was Peggy Fulford, who we mentioned before, and she targeted big names in sports like Dennis Rodman, like Ricky Williams, and it's another story. And by the way, I talk so much about reality TV on this show that I love this scammer because she actually pitched a reality series about her life, which we get to see clips of in this. Can you imagine being a scammer and also pitching a reality series at the same time?
See, that was where she messed up. Like, she wanted so much of the limelight. It's like, if you're going to do crime, baby, you got to do it in the dark. Okay, there's a reason we don't cat burglar during the day. Like, okay, you got to do your crime at night. Like, what was she thinking? And I love that we got to see those clips. It's also like you could tell she had bigger ambitions for herself. But I always say, don't trust people who wear colored contacts. That was the first flag.
Sorry.
Why are you hiding your eyes from me? Let me see your retinas.
Yeah. But poor Dennis Rodman's not going to check for colored contacts. He doesn't know that trick. But it was interesting to watch her story as well. And that's why I think the show works, because you're like, oh, that's a story I didn't know. And you're always kind of shocked with all of these stories because you think that you couldn't be deceived when the actuality is we're all being scammed all the time. We're always like, whether it be a text message saying your UPS package wasn't delivered, like we're all getting scammed every day, every year, and we all fall for it at some point. But these are like the real brazen ones. The Dennis Rodman stuff was interesting because you forget aspects of Dennis Rodman's life, like the friendship with Kim Jong-un. And he was...
I didn't forget that.
Yeah, well,
so weird.
Listen, it's been a tough year. I forgot, okay? But Kim Jong-un, friendly with Dennis Rodman, and then Dennis Rodman like is friends with Peggy, and her brother is then Dennis Rodman's friend, and he's hanging out with Kim Jong-un. And as a pop culture fan, it just is kind of like we live in a simulation because it's so bizarre. But then the Ricky Williams story, that kind of opened my eyes because Ricky Williams, this was a man that seemed like he wanted to get his finances and life in order and provide generational wealth to his family, and she stole $6 million from him.
Also, what was specific to me about this story is you're watching Black men be preyed on by a Black woman. And the word generational wealth has a different stigma in the Black community, considering that so much of our wealth was taken from us as people. And anytime we tried to build towns and build our own wealth, they were burned down. You know, you look out through history, anytime we've tried to lift ourselves up, there's always someone trying to tear us down. And systematically, that is still happening. Black people can't get home loans. We can't get loans for businesses in our own communities. There's reason for that, you know, even in the highway structuring, how things are built where the freeways are always cutting through our neighborhoods. So when you hear generational wealth as a Black person, like that's something that's really special and important to you because it's something you really want to create because it's been so difficult to do in our communities. So she really took advantage also of their personhood, you know, and she was like in their lives at their birthday parties, you know, she was the godmother to their children. It was such an insidious scam. And I feel like it was such a personal one. At least Rita was just taking stuff from the bank. She wasn't actually going and taking the Similac out the baby's mouth. Like, you know.
I mean, yeah, she had to put the work in. She was like a godmom. She was like friendly with these people. She was partying with these people. And there's a great drag queen where she's talking about her relationship with Dennis Rodman and saying like, I knew she was bad news and I tried to warn Dennis, and Dennis would just brush me aside all the time and just say, oh, forget about it. But his card was declining everywhere. And like
at the grocery store. How much money are you taking from somebody that they can't go buy eggs?
I mean, that's wild. And but the interesting thing too is that she did this over a period of time where she was scamming people and getting caught, and then still being able to scam new people, and nobody had warned each other.
Yes, because of the shame. And especially when you start to make a lot of money, people make assumptions about people who earn a high amount of money. They assume that they're smarter than other people, and that's why they beat the system and they beat poverty. That's simply not true. A lot of times you either are lucky, or you had a family who already had money, or you had a bunch of people in your family who done murdered and stole everything, and that's why you have it too. But when you become a part of a rich circle, admitting that you got scammed is almost admitting that you're stupid to all these other kind of elitist people. So rich people will hide that shame even more so. And then that scammer gets to move throughout the community because no one has, you know, shared information.
Yeah. I mean, it's mind blowing. And the Ricky Williams, I love the interviews in that because at the end he was like, listen, I'm not living as flashy of a lifestyle as I might have once did in the NFL, but I am living a life that I am proud of, that I am so much, more anxiety free without having to deal with all of this and building his own life and going to school. And I was like, oh, that's nice. That's a guy that's escaped that shame and kind of moving forward with his life.
Yeah. And I was proud to see that. And we like to show that at the end of the episode if we can find like how people have built back a silver lining, like, because it's not, I don't like, that's why my beef with true crime has always been is it feels very voyeuristic. It feels very like, let's look at these people's pain and be nosy in their business. And then you just leave them where they are. But we got to see people who have really rebuilt their lives. And we want to share that, something bad can happen to you and that doesn't have to be who you are.
Yeah. Have you noticed a change in scamming through the years?
Oh, yeah. Scamming, I call it the second oldest profession. It's always evolving, constantly updating. Anytime there's new technology, scammers are going to find a way to use it. I mean, as soon as we started seeing a launch, a heavy launch in AI in all of our lives, and the more accessible it was, who started cloning voices and pretending to be, your grandson in prison and calling a grandma? I always tell everybody on Facebook, please take your relatives off of your Facebook. People do not need to know who your cousin is. Scammers are going on there. They're clicking on who your grandbaby is, and then they're cloning their voice and calling you, pretending that they're in prison and they need $1,500. Yeah. Don't let it happen. We've given up so much information that we've made it so easy for scammers to just do anything.
I mean, truly, the AI is so frightening. I had a friend throw a couple of my episodes into an AI generator, and they sent me a clip of my show that I was like, I don't remember saying any of that about Kris Jenner, and it was just AI, but it was actually maybe better than my own show, so I was kind of like, oh, damn. I was like, oh, no. Oh, it's game over. I was like, that actually kind of is fun. I don't think I've ever said that. That's amazing.
I don't believe that for a second, Ryan, but also wouldn't it be hilarious if we both just started throwing our podcasts in AI and just stopped doing them?
By the way, LACI, at this point, I'm going to use this audio, and you're going to be my guest for the next 10 years. Like, LACI Mosley's back with us today to talk Vanderpump Rules. Yeah. It is interesting, though, like 2019, Scam Goddess takes off like right out of the gate, and you're like top 10 pods of the year. You win all of these awards, and you have, like, by the way, the best guests. Like this week's episode, you had JB Smoove. I went back and re-listened to your Elizabeth Finch episode, which is one of my favorite scams that they did a docuseries on this week, who was the writer at Grey's Anatomy, you guys. We talked about her before, but I was wondering with Elizabeth Finch, if you noticed during the fires, did you see the update on Elizabeth Finch?
I can't believe she was trying to start a GoFundMe. Girl, we are not going to fund you or whatever you're saying you're funding. We do not trust you.
Yeah, she started to GoFundMe, folks, and said, listen, I know people are donating to the big things, but I want to get boots on the ground. If you GoFundMe, I'm going to go out and buy pet food and stuff. And by the way, listen, I mean, there's a 5% chance she's telling the truth, but why would you? There's a sickness with scammers that, do you think they believe their own scams sometimes? Or do you think they fully are aware of the criminal activity?
I mean, there are some who move throughout the world, and this is how they escape prison. And I think Elizabeth Finch is one of those. I think Sean King is one of those. I think Caroline Calloway is one of those, where they're like, I had the best intentions. I know I said I was going to send you something for the money you sent me, but then I couldn't do the thing, but I kept the money. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I meant to make a hoodie. I'm sorry. And then they just steal your money and they keep moving. Sean King's like, oh yeah, I meant to make a newspaper and I kept charging you monthly, even though I shut down the offices, but newspapering is hard. Like, and they keep moving and they don't go to jail. And I feel like Elizabeth is one of those. She was like, I'm sorry, I faked cancer to everybody and I stole stories from other people and I'm sorry, it was an accident. Whoops. And now she's like, oh, but I'm a good person now. I'm helping with the fires. It's like, baby girl, we have no way of accounting where that money is going to go to, and there are plenty of legitimate places on the ground who already have their boots on the ground. You talking about you need to go fund me to go buy boots so then you could get your boots on the ground. We don't have time for that.
Well, I mean, it is interesting to grow up with certain scammers where they almost pivot in a sense. Like Beyonce will pivot brilliantly with different musical styles and choices, and then scammers will pivot as well. And you don't ever want to give them their flowers because it's just ridiculous and criminal and horrifying. But it is interesting to watch a scammer pivot over the years.
It really is. And I think people sometimes get confused because I am fascinated in these people. I mean, in the Rita episode, there is a quote of me being like, on one hand, icon, on the other
Iconic,
hand,
yeah.
villain. You know, it's like to pull off these types of feats, people think scamming is easy. Scamming is a profession, and there's several different sectors of scamming. You could be into fraud, you could just be into like petty theft, you could be, stealing from Lululemon and returning it to another Lululemon. Like there's different types of scams that you can do. You could be a Bernie Madoff where you're just doing full on Wall Street financial crime. You could be a crypto guy. There's different sectors you could be an MLM mom who's just roping in all their friends and family and telling them to mortgage their home so they can get more leggings to sell. There's different types of scammers. And so they all do pivot and they move into different industries. And it's hard work. You got to keep a lie journal. You got to keep up with those lies. And, you got to know, you got to do Excel.
There's so much work to keep up a lie. And I mean, you worked at a bar, by the way, which was potentially a front for something else you speculated. Like, we all participate in something. Like, I think sometimes Apple TV is like scamming people because they never advertise their shows and they have brilliant shows. But I'm like, are they just like laundering money through the app of Apple TV? Because you're like, this doesn't make sense. By the way, you're not only this podcaster and host and all of this, but you are like kind of a phenomenal actor. And is there this push-pull of you of being this host, but also being a working actor that I think your star keeps rising in terms of projects? Is there I want to do 50% hosting and Scam Goddess and 50% acting? Because I truly believe that you will be nominated for an Oscar one day. I think you're on that weird precipice. Is that something that you battle with internally at all?
It absolutely is. When there was this whole situation with J-Lo, and I remember that they kept calling me a podcaster and Variety and all these other outlets, which I love those outlets, but I was like, I'm not a podcaster. I'm kind of just like in mixed media, and luckily I'm in a time where you're not necessarily defined by the jobs that you have and the status of them, because there was a time where doing television, you would never see a movie star do television. And guess what? The scam of limited series is that you're going to see the biggest movie stars in the world doing a limited murder mystery. Okay, Nikki Kim ain't gonna throw that wig on full of secrets, but she's still a movie star. And so it's like, but you used to never see that thing happen. It would be like television is at this level, and like news and reality's down here, and movies are way up here. And now you're seeing, especially with like social media influencers and TikTokers and how everything is starting to meld together, there's not as much of a hierarchy like it used to be. So I do appreciate that, because I want to keep doing all the things that I love. But I am an actor and I do write, and so those are the things that we're prioritizing right now. But I do love Scam Goddess. It's been my baby for so long.
Yeah, it is interesting, even just that term podcaster, which I am as well. But I want to start a change.org of can we do a different name? Because it is so even on TV shows now, it's like, it's always like, I was listening to a podcast, and it's always a punchline to a joke. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no, this is like a real actual avenue, but it is interesting the times we live in. Other things I wanted to talk about in terms of scamming, I think you talked about in an interview I listened to that you really appreciate Anna Delvey.
Mm-hmm.
In what way do you appreciate Anna? Because she's really talk about pivoting, not pivoting, but she was on Dancing with the Stars last season.
Yes, and she was so mad when she got cut. And they were like, what will you take from this experience? And she was like, nothing. And I was like, ah! I'm sorry, she's my problematic fave. I talked about her with Michael Strahan on Good Morning America, because I would love to interview her, because the way that she targeted people when she did her initial scam, she was moving around these very, affluent communities and saying that she was going to make this big high-end social club. And there's nothing that rich people love more than a place to keep poor people out of it. And so she was using that to scam them. And she also had the ruse that Peggy also did in the basketball episode, where she looked rich. She would tip the bellhops and everybody at the hotel $100 bills, even though she wasn't paying her hotel bill. But she looked rich enough that they let her skate by. It's like you give a little to get a lot. And so she's really good at that. And so I would want to talk to her, because I'm just so curious in how she targeted people, because there's a certain type of person in that community that she knew she could get over on. Because there's a lot of people who keep it very insular. They're like, we don't know you. We don't. Where's your grandmother stay? Like Kendrick Lamar, where your grandma stay, but for rich people, where is Mima? Where does Mima summer? So what does she winter? They keep it insular. So I want to know how she infiltrated, because it's really wild. I don't think what she did was right. However,
it's interesting because she actually, her scam was also to I think open this art space, which she was really, I think, believed in. But it was interesting that she was at this hotel. She kept putting things on the bill. And I have a friend that actually used to party with her in the New York scene. And she was like, oh yeah, no, she was great. It was so interesting of people that were even around her at that time that kind of had no idea, because they all just ran in this very affluent, rich world that I think their life was so bizarre already that bizarreness on top of bizarreness they couldn't suss out, maybe.
Yeah. Also, she didn't want it. I say this all the time, especially as an actor. My whole acting career turned around when I stopped wanting it so bad. I remember I used to go on commercial auditions. I would never get them. I come in, I'd be like, oh, hi, how's your day? Good to see you. Doing all the stuff, trying everything. I took a commercial acting class, scam.
Yeah, but I used to go to the casting director workshops where.
Oh yes, where you literally you paying somebody to crush your spirit.
Here's $75 to call me in for a one-line barista role, please.
We don't have a job for you, but come in here and let me tell you why you're not good enough. What? And I'm gonna pay you for this? I did those too. I talked about it in my book. What a fucking scam. Excuse my language. What a scam. But yeah, it's the second I remember I booked the Super Bowl commercial, I parked at a 15-minute meter and I walked into casting, and I'd already booked Florida Girls, so I didn't really even care to be there. And I walked into casting, I was like, hey y'all, I got 15 minutes on the meter, so if y'all can't see me, that's cool, I'ma just go. And they were like, her, the one who doesn't want to be here. And I think Anna did that. You can see that in her spirit all the time. She's just like, I don't care. I don't need y'all. I don't want to be here. And then people are drawn to that because they're like, why are you so protective? What do you have to protect?
Mysterious. I like that. Yeah.
The more you give to people, sometimes they're like, what's wrong with you? Why are you so thirsty? So Anna knows how to play that game.
It was interesting, the Dancing with the Stars thing, because then I was my mind was wandering, and I was like, could we do a whole scammer season of Dancing with the Stars? Could we do a Traitors, just scammer, because the Traitors is big right now on Peacock.
I love Traitors.
Oh my God, it's so good. But I was like, could we just do they're all kind of scammers in a sense. Reality stars are scammers in a sense, but could we just do a scammers Traitors season and just the best of the best scammers? And then they compete to get out of jail?
I would love when the reality stars get out, when Jen Shaw gets out, when Anna Delvey's got that ankle jewelry off, all the Apollo Nida, who was on Real Housewives, who went to jail and came out for fraud. Yeah. If we got all the convicted TV people on Traitors and just saw how they performed, I think that would be excellent television.
Truly, it would be why, and people think that's crazy when I kind of have said that in the past, but it's not that crazy if you look where we're headed, because to your point earlier, the intersection of true crime and pop culture has completely intersected at this point, where we are being entertained by true crime. And you always have to remember, like you pointed out, the seriousness of this, but there is also, especially with scammers, there is this air of ridiculousness to it. I don't know where we're headed, and I'm curious because we've made some of these people actual stars. I'm really curious because Jen Shah's prison sentence keeps getting reduced.
And
it does. It leads me to believe that the prison system are huge fans of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City and want to see her back on there for next season. They're like, keep reducing. We got to get her back on. We got to get her back on.
Andy Cohen's writing letters every day and calling. He's like, I need her. Give her back. I will say, it is kind of cringe when you see how there's so many comedy murder shows, and then you see all these murder shows that are lauding the criminals. I don't like the ones where they're all about we want to know his mind. I don't want to know his mind. He was a weirdo who was murdering people. I don't care about his mind. But what I'm doing, and what I hope people see what we're doing, is that I'm making fun of the scammers because I think they're very unserious people, but it's also infotainment. We are sharing a lot of information, and I really hope that people walk away from these episodes feeling a little safer and a little smarter, but also opening themselves up to the possibility of things like this happening to them. Because when you open yourself up to that possibility, you actually keep yourself safer, because then when you start to see flags, instead of thinking, oh, that would never happen in my world, you don't disregard them. You get that person up out the way.
Are you able to tease the rest of the season of Scam Goddess? Are what we potentially are going to see in terms of who they focus on, or is that completely secret?
No, it's not a secret. I mean, obviously there was a teaser at the end of episode 2. I will be sitting down with a scammer fresh out of prison, who I believe has a dark triad personality, and it was a terrifying 2-hour interview.
What's a dark triad personality, Lacey?
It's where you are like you have sociopathic tendencies, psychopathic tendencies, and narcissistic tendencies all in one personality. And so it's like kind of like the worst person you could meet because they don't have any empathy. They're also extreme narcissists. They'll gaslight you to hell and they'll take everything you got and they won't feel bad about it.
How did you prepare for that? And were you nervous going in?
I prepared by one. I got very lucky. I got to speak with a journalist who actually broke the story on Kyle Sandler. And we spoke off camera about his personality when she spoke to him. And she taught me how he spoke. Like she was like, you're going to ask him a direct question and he's going to take you down a long, windy road. He's going to take you all over. You have to bring him back to it. She taught me how to like walk him down and like how to like almost recreate moments and ask him to recreate them. And then I would spot the lies that he had already answered in the question and pull them right out. And by the end, I had him saying that he lied and he stole. Like he admitted it because at a certain point he just couldn't get around it. But what scared me was that I was so leaned in, I was so locked into this interview. And when I walked away from it, I did not touch him. Typically, like I'll hug people or whatever. I did not touch this man ever. I did not want that energy on me. But I walked out of that place and I was shaking, like physically shaking. So I'm really excited for the Opalika episode because you really do get to see Alabama. And I think it's a really important one. I think the Ghanaian prince episode is very important because obviously the Nigerian prince lore of scammers, like if you really see this in action, I think you might change your mind about how ridiculous it is. So we've got some interesting stuff coming up that I'm really excited about.
Would you do a season 2 of the TV show if you're able to?
Who's to say?
Oh my God! Oh, look at you! Look at Wow. Okay.
It's my whole hand.
I got it. Well, I want to see a season 2. A couple of other things that I wanted to ask you about. You also have talked about Guru Juggett before, and just that's another thing that just not cracks me up, but. We've talked about that on the show about Kundalini. This was the scam involving Kundalini yoga, but just another Los Angeles thing. When you are coming up as an actor, you're not only getting it from like casting directors and like scams over here, you're getting scams from the wellness community that like, it is so hard. Like I try to express like what an uphill struggle it is to even get an audition that you need like meditation, yoga, inspirational phrases. And Guru Juggett was, that was like tapping into that whole space of, act like kind of almost preying on actors in a sense, because it would be mainly actors in those classes.
Yes, and his product lines, that's what really shook me, is knowing how much I've consumed outside of, like in his businesses. That's very popular. The yogi teas, like
I didn't even know about the yogi tea.
I was like, I got yogi tea in my house right now. I've been drinking scam. I've been sipping on crime.
There's a scam inside the house. Call somebody.
The best part of waking up was scam in my cup. I couldn't believe it. Oh. But yes, actors, like when you make your body a product, you really are signing yourself up for a wild ride, and you really have to find grounding forces. And I absolutely understand why people ran to him and his teachings, because I've been tempted to walk into a lot of cult buildings just to see what's going on, like see a vibe and catch a vibe a little bit.
Listen, the government can be a scam, religion can be a scam. There's big ones, there's small ones. I've always said like there are certain Hollywood religions that if I was like, if they got me on my worst day in Los Angeles, there's a possibility I would have joined. Like there's that, like if they got me on my worst day, I fully could see me being taken in.
I'd be wearing a little bracelet. I'd be out on the street passing out the pamphlets. You'll see me in a white shirt and a black tie going door to door. You never know what I might get involved in, because this industry will drive you crazy if you let it.
I did want to ask you about something that happened recently about the Brad Pitt AI scam. Did you have you talked about this yet?
I have not talked about this yet, but I did see some things online.
So there was this lady overseas that spent $850,000 because she thought she was in a relationship with Brad Pitt, and he was having he had liver cancer, Brad Pitt, unfortunately, and she sent him all this money, and he couldn't access his money because he was going through divorce proceedings with Angelina Jolie, and it was and then she would like the photos that would be sent to her, I mean, were so badly photoshopped. This wasn't where the AI came in. That was like in other aspects of the case. But this poor woman was taken in, and it started all with a DM from what was Brad Pitt's mother. So Brad Pitt's mother, and she didn't really know how to use social media. So this lady, the alleged Brad Pitt's mother, said, "Oh my gosh, you seem so cool. You would be so great for my son." And she was like, "Oh, who's your son?" And he's like, "Oh, he's an actor." And like, "Who's the actor?" "Brad Pitt." And then Brad Pitt, the, fake Brad Pitt, DM'd her and said, "I hear you're friends with my mom, and I hear that you're a really amazing lady." And that's how that scam started.
I mean, I know it sounds so ridiculous, but I still don't have any judgment for this woman because there was a situation, I can't say which parent, but one of my parents works with another person whose son is a very, very, very like Marvel famous actor. And somehow they got on the subject of both of their kids being actors. And then my parents showed them my picture. They were like, no. They asked if they could look up me, like my name. So my parent gave them the name because they're just talking, right? And it's like, "Oh, you're proud of your kids," or whatever. The mother Googles my name and is like, "Oh, she's an actress. Oh, she looks like she works and everything. She'd be great for my son. Do you mind giving me her number?" And this is like a real, I'll tell you when we're off the air, but this is like a real famous person.
Real deal,
and this
yeah.
really is her mother or his mother. So that kind of setup can happen. And I think this was a good finesse because they didn't start with like, "Hey, I'm Brad Pitt and I need your money and you're sexy, baby." They started with like, "I'm Brad Pitt's mom and I think you'd be great for the son." It's like you're taking them on a little ride. I wouldn't go $850,000 without touching on one of Brad Pitt's abs. However, I understand.
Wait, but
how
no, by the
she
way,
got there.
I don't have judgment on the woman at all. I just said, like, what a weirdly sophisticated thing that's probably,
Yeah.
my dad's like 75 years old, and I get so scared without my mom there. I'm just like, "Dad, really be careful." Like, really, because he'll like toy around on Facebook, which I already think is not something you should do. And I just get really nervous because my dad's lonely, and like, you just don't know what's going to happen in those situations. So I'm like, "Oh my God, a fake Angelina Jolie is going to call my dad eventually, and he's going to be dating Angelina Jolie."
Yeah, we gotta get your dad in some wiffle ball or something where he can meet some other 75-year-olds and get it popping. But yeah, I'm glad that you check on him and take care of him because I tell people all the time, like, check on your older relatives because they're clicking on links. You're not gonna have a home to come home to because they're gonna give it away to whoever's talking to them every day. Loneliness is also like any need that you have, a scammer will exploit, and we all have needs.
Yeah, I think you point out, like, scammers will be able to, like, they're laser-like in their precision of seeing what that entrance point is. I mean, even your second episode about the, sports, the athletes, is that they are being preyed upon from all sides. So they need a trusted voice, and she was able to get in there and then kind of build this whole, stable of athletes like, "Oh, I represent Dennis Rodman. Oh, if she represents Dennis Rodman, I'll go with her." So she was able to keep scamming based on all of these like pro athletes' names.
Yeah. Also, she had the accoutrement. I don't know how she was scamming before, allegedly, before she got into the, athletic business. But when the athletes pulled up to the house, she had the cars. She had a huge house. It was decorated. She gave off the appeal of success. And a lot of times that's what happens in every industry. You see it with rappers who sign 360 deals where they're not making any money, but they got the chains, they got the cars, they got the houses. And so young people are looking at them like, "Oh, they must be rich and successful. Look at them posing with money." I say anybody who takes a picture with money does not have money, because why do you need to remember? Why do you need to remember when you had money?
Well, Lacey, do you remember MTV Cribs? MTV Cribs
Yes.
was like, I miss MTV Cribs, but half of those cribs weren't their cribs. Like, they weren't their cribs. And they would be like, "Look at this baller lifestyle we're leading." And I remember, who was it? I think it was the actor Sean William Scott, where he actually showed them his shitty apartment. He was like, "This is my apartment in Van Nuys." And I was like, that's refreshing. Wow, your shitty
Method
apartment.
Man did the same thing in New York. It was like, "This is why I keep my cereal." It was like on top of the fridge. He was like, it was so, I loved Method Man for that.
What are other, I guess in 2024 leading into 2025, are there scams on your radar? Like, in terms of the podcast, itself, like, what are stories that you're hoping to cover or already in the works?
We've got some stories in the works that are a bit more like relevant, and like we try to stay on like the pulse of culture, but also we do historic scams as well, because I think they're also like necessary in the conversation. But what we've really been getting
Historic
into,
hoodwinks, right?
yes, historic good ways. What we've really been getting into is like one, AI, how it is starting to play communities. Also, how our phones, like, scam likely calls me more than my mother. Like how there these text phishing scams that keep happening. These emails that you get that you've made a purchase for a large amount of money, but if you need to dispute the charge, you need to call this, and there and verify your credit card information. They're finding new and more clever ways to scam you. I got a scam that said that they could see through the camera of my phone while I was in Ireland shooting Going Dutch. And they had a picture of my old address and they had my old phone number. And it was this very menacing letter saying that I had to send them money today or they were going to release all this information about me. And like, I knew it was fake and I didn't respond, but it was actually very, very, it was the scariest one that I've gotten. And I can't imagine if you are just living an everyday life and you get a photo where they are like, I'm outside of your house and I have all of your information, and you don't pay them. But I always say you never pay somebody who's trying to bribe you, because what's to stop them to come back and be like, hey, it's time to bribe again? Like,
yeah, it's fun. I need some new winter clothes. Yeah.
right.
Well, you said you were in Ireland for Going Dutch, which is the Fox sitcom with Dennis Leary. What was that experience like? I mean, Dennis Leary, obviously a legendary actor and performer. Was that a good experience?
I love Dennis Leary so much. He is a class act. He's such a phenomenal actor, and he really cares about the work, and he loves improv. We did a ton of it, and I don't like when actors typically say that because they be lying, but but it was encouraged, and he would come in every day and kick down the door, be like, what's up, mother effers? And, do y'all know y'all lines? And then we all be like scrambling around. Like sometimes me and like Danny and Taylor Mishak, we're all passing around the same set of sides as he's like going through the scene. We're like scamming Dennis. We're like, yeah, we got it.
We got you. We got you. Yeah.
And I remember one time we were running lines outside of an airport hangar, and they were running lines for the next day, because he would be like the next day he wanted to run lines for those too. And so they're running lines. I'm standing in the corner, and they get to a line, they all stop, and then they all looked at me, and I was like, I'm like, why am I in it? No, I had a great time with the cast. I consider Danny Pudi is my cousin.
God, Danny Pudi's so Community, such an amazing actor. My God,
and also a fantastic human being, amazing father. Honestly, too good of a person. I had to start spreading rumors about him because I was like, something has to be bad. Like, he was a wateraholic. All he wanted to do was drink water.
Oh, that's the biggest scam ever. You don't drink Diet Coke. Give me a break, Danny.
No,
oh my God.
I was like, what is it, Danny? You got gambling debts. I'm telling everybody you got gambling debts.
LACI just started a Reddit thread of Danny Pudi. Let's look into it.
It's the same. I love him. I love them all. They were fantastic to work with.
What's your proudest moment? Sorry. Okay. And you what? No. You were about to finish.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, in Ireland, like, getting adjusted as an American to Ireland culture, you see how my fist came out? Was interesting because all of the people in Ireland are so chill. They have work-life balance, honey. Like, all the stores in my neighborhood would close by 6 p.m. Everybody's like, what's the crack? You having a good crack? Having a good day? I got locked out because I was trying to get Uber Eats, and I thought it was going to be right outside of my door because I'm American. And I just gotten there. No one told me that the place in my apartment was fire doors. So I step out and I put a coat on over my panties. I'm barefoot. I don't have my phone. And I just step out to grab my little food. Door closes behind me. I'm locked out in a coat and panties. And in Ireland, it was my first week there. I'm like sobbing because I'm like, I don't even know what to do right now.
You're sobbing with Uber Eats food in your hand? Like, just
I didn't even have the food. Oh. The food wasn't outside of my door. Why did this man, it's always a man, he took a picture of the food when I finally got back in. He took a picture of the food and he took it like with the food on the concrete. Like, how am I supposed to find this specific slab of concrete? Give me they don't care. They are chilling over there. But I ended up going back to the store where I bought the coat barefoot, nothing underneath. And I was like, hey, y'all, remember when I bought this coat yesterday? Can y'all call my leasing office? And I'm like crying. They're like, oh, dear. Oh, we can get some tea. Oh, we can get some shoes. Oh, we'll throw you in the back. Next thing I know, I'm barefoot in a coat and panties in the back of a retail store with all the clothes with a cup of tea. Like, I was in America 2 days ago. How did I get here? But everyone was so kind. Like the people in Ireland, like I love them real bad, real bad. I might have to get
But
some
that's the life of
citizenship.
an artist. That's the life of an artist. You're here one day, you're in Ireland in panties, not having food, the next sipping tea. Like that's the life you signed up for, Lacey. This is the
I don't know
dream
if I signed up for that, Ryan.
This is the dream coming true. I was just thinking because I know you were still like extremely young, but you've had so many facets of your career thus far. Like, do you have a proudest moment of your career, or like, damn, I can't believe I did that?
I mean, oh gosh, that's hard. I really loved winning Best Host at the iHeartRadio Awards last year. But I will say it was probably this week, and I don't think I've actually felt it. I hadn't seen the billboards
Talking
yet.
to
Like,
me?
Ryan talking.
Oh,
to
I
me.
thought you. Okay, sorry, I didn't let you finish.
Talking to
This
you. No,
week.
no, no. You're right.
Okay.
You're right. That's number two. That's number two. And then my sister being born, that'd be three. No, no. But 2 days ago, actually, I people would send me pictures of the billboards and stuff, but I hadn't seen them. I've been on billboards before, but always like with a cast or like whatever. Going to see the billboard in person and being on like seeing one of them by myself, seeing myself in Times Square again, but
God.
alone. I was like, wow, like I worked so hard and it's all starting to pay off. It damn near killed me, but yeah.
By the way, there's a story in the book about having to go to the. Yeah, I mean that's. By the way, I recommend her book. But I was looking at that picture of the Times Square thing, and I just that is such an amazing moment. If you, especially a performing artist, like to have that moment, Times Square is like hit into our brains growing up of like the pinnacle, like one of the pinnacle places of entertainment, and your face is there, and this show that you created from conception, like it's there, and it is on our screens right now in a different format than what we love with the podcast. But you're one of those people when I don't know you at all, but there are those certain people where you're like, every time I see your name pop up as something cool, I'm like, oh, I'm really proud of her. Like, that's really awesome.
Well, thank you.
But like, because you've earned it. Like, I feel like, oh God, you're going to bring the quality to each thing that you do. So it's really exciting to follow, even though you won't let us know if there will be a second season of Scam Goddess. Do you set, as we wind down here, do you set any goals or intentions for 2025? That's a big actor, performing artist thing to do. Are you somebody that believes in setting intentions for the year or goals for the year?
I kind of got freaked out recently. I was cleaning out my closet and I found a vision board, and everything on that vision board from, I think it was 2017 or 2016, everything had come true. Except for I'm not drinking more water, so I'm drinking more water now. But it was wild to see. It was like sell my own show.
Wait, you put water on your you put water on your vision
You
board?
gotta have some attainable goals as well. Okay, everything can't be lofty.
Why
okay?
is broccoli on your vision board, Lacey? Like you put water, and that's the only thing that did.
Make my bed every morning. Something you can do. And have I done that? No. Did I get on the billboards? Yes. Is my bed not made right now? Absolutely. So I think that's where I'm going in 2025 is like I'm really focusing on writing my own projects, like narrative writing, and I'm also really focused on living a life. I sacrificed the past 10 years, wasn't really dating, wasn't, having any hobbies. If you want to stump me, ask me what my hobbies are. Now I can tell you boxing, but before I would be like, read the scripts. I don't know. Like it was
Yes. So much, by the way, to do what you're doing takes so much work that like I was talking to a TV director one time and he was like, listen, you will get, if you keep working and work hard, I'm talking hard where you sacrifice relationships, you will have your moment. You will have your opportunity, but you might not have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. You might not have a marriage. You might not have kids, but you will get your shot. There is so much work that goes into this, to your point.
Yeah. And I mean, it was really Danny Pudi, my cousin, looking at his life that made me realize that I can have balance. Like he really cares about his family. He would show us like pictures of his kids. They'd be dancing or showing us the science projects. Like he's like still like a very involved father and enjoys his life and has fun, but does like crazy celebrity stuff too. But like the way he describes it, he'll be like, yeah, we were on the AstroTurf. And I was like, this is real grass. And then I'm turning out and then you find out he's like throwing the first pitch at something. And it's like, what? You left that out. But he's like, I was really talking to grass. I'm really trying to get my grass better. Like my grass right now, it's looking crazy. Like, so it's like, I want to literally touch grass this year. And I also want to write my own things and continue to write my own things and, find the fun that I've always loved in this business because it's always driven me. So that's where I'm going this year.
Yeah, I made a vision board for you as well, and I predict you will write your own movie. I think you will produce something, and I just was reading entertainment articles today, and they're rebooting Scary Movie, and I predict you'll be in Scary Movie.
That is the one thing. That. Okay, from your mouth to God's ears, I'm saying that too. I actually do really want that super bad. I already, the second I saw that it came out, I hit my reps up and I was like, please let me be Regina Hall's cousin. Please let me be in this movie. I love the Wayans. They some of them know me. Like, please, I need to be in Scary Movie so bad.
To me, I was like, there's no other way to go. When I saw that, I was like, oh, that's weird. I think that would be perfect for you. But I will say you are a damn good host. And Scam Goddess, which is on Freeform, but you can stream on Hulu. It's Wednesday nights. There are 2 episodes out right now. The third will be on Wednesday night. And the podcast Scam Goddess, I know you all listen, but if you don't, go check it out because there are so many good episodes that point out. I mean, it is a humorous podcast, obviously, but it also points out that these are crimes. These are not good things, but you have to laugh at sometimes the ridiculousness of these crimes and, just the brazen nature of them. So go rate it 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Go follow LACI. I'll put all of her socials up. I enjoy following her on Instagram and her adventures.
Follow Ryan?
Oh, yeah, no, I why would you know who I'm just me. So,
yeah. Please.
I'm like, it's at So Bad It's Good.
You're so humble.
I post housewives memes, LACI, so you'll get annoyed real quick.
I love it. No, that's what I want.
And last question, what are you watching, listening, and reading to right now in terms of pop culture? We talk a lot about that. What are you enjoying?
I am absolutely watching Traitors. I love it so much. I know my reps would never let me do it, but I think I would be fantastic on that show. I'm obsessed with it. I can't stop. Mostly because, obviously they have to get a lot of faithfuls out, so it's all about vibes at first. They're like, oh, we don't like you, so we're gonna vote you as a traitor. You know what I mean? But it's so funny to watch so many people speak in those confessionals with such conviction that they know who the traitors are, and they're absolutely wrong. So wrong.
And then you have just shots of Sam Asghari showering, not knowing where he's at. So you'll have these really kind of, or Tom Sandoval taking it so serious. It's like, oh, dude, what's going on here, dude? It is so many interesting personalities. And then they start being so paranoid, which is where we're at in the season right now. And you have these professional people like Boston Rob and Big Brother players that actually know how to scheme. So it is such a great, and it's so well produced. I love it so much.
Oh, I love Alan Cumming so much. Every outfit, everything.
Commits to the bit. So traitors. What are you listening to?
I mean, I'm always listening to, I'm always listening to Beyonce, but I'm listening to The Read. That is my favorite podcast. And
legends, right?
Yes, I love Kid Fury. I love Crystal. I had the privilege to have Kid Fury on my show. He's so sweet. But I love that show, and it keeps me abreast on the pop culture nonsense that I don't have time for, and it's funny. So that's my favorite podcast. So I'm listening to that. As far as reading, unfortunately, Ryan, I'm gonna have to say I've been reading scripts.
You got to put a book. You got to put a novel on that vision board for 2025. With
the next book I'm reading is Ira Madison III's. He's mailing it to me.
Oh yeah, his book comes out in February.
Yeah, so he's mailing it to me. I'm reading my friends' books. I've been reading a ton of my friends' memoirs. With that
isn't
seems
that,
to be
by the way, isn't
the
that
thing
cool,
we do?
Isn't that cool? By the way, Ira Madison, you guys, he amazing podcast. Keep it, but it's so cool. I can't wait to read that book. So that comes out in February. But LACI Mosley. Thank you so much, man. I was looking forward to this so much. So thank you for just being a great person.
Thank you, Ryan. This was fantastic. You brought so much energy into my day. I appreciate it.
Sorry. Okay.
No, I love it. I needed it.